Hello, I'm Mark Anderson of awakeningnews.ca, a consulting editor for that online publication, and I'm with the associate editor of awakeningnews.ca, John Devine. How you doing, John?
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Here in July of 2018, we're in Orillia, Ontario, and we're by the edge of Lake Simcoe. However, we're also near the city dump in this Ontario city in just about an hour and a half north of Toronto. And John, you were telling me about numerous issues that are surrounding the city of Orillia. We're talking closed door meetings. We're talking putting arenas that are still unfinished, this large arena on land that used to be foundry land, and we don't know anything about the environmental cleanup of that because of the closed door meetings. We're talking about the reality of aquifers, the Lake Simcoe aquifer extending much further inland than the lake itself, than the visible lake. A number of issues that are not thought about and seem to be outside the purview of the political parties, which are collectively and individually silent on these matters. Going back to square one, what are the issues here that you see as the most pertinent? You were telling me sewage and wastewater continues to be dumped into Lake Simcoe, and this has been happening for well over a century under the radar of all political parties. Kind of sum this up for us.
Well, the evolution of it is the fact that the dump's been here for over a century, and every political party and every politician has chosen to let it go under the radar, and nobody wants to debate it or discuss it. Thus, we're still doing it. We're still bringing garbage here and putting it into the ground. The advancements in recycling are there, and some of them are working, but we've got a long way to go to stop the garbage from going into our Lake Simcoe aquifer. And what I mean by Lake Simcoe aquifer, if you look down here, you'll see Lake Simcoe. Now, a lot of people assume the water ends there. Well, it doesn't. The water comes up underneath us, and that's what you call the lake aquifer. In this case, it's the Lake Simcoe aquifer. And in this case, the aquifer travels in underneath the water sewage plant, the landfill site, and the new recreational center that's being built. The problem is, over the century that's being ignored, we've got all kinds of pollutants going into the aquifer from industries where the recreational building is being built right now, and also the landfill site. And it goes down into this very slow-moving water in the aquifer, and over decades and decades, and now a century, the pollutants have spread themselves out. So, but this isn't just a problem of Orillia. This is a problem probably of around the world, of human beings putting their garbage in places that no consideration was given as to what's going to happen to it when it's thrown there. And a lot of garbage sites are stuff filtering down into the groundwater, which is really, really under serious duress now for all kinds of other reasons. So, yeah, landfill sites at large, Ray's got a problem, but the world's got a problem.
Very interesting. And this recreation center, or arena as some people call it, we drove by it a little while ago here on 28 July 2018, and I'm looking at a building that has been incomplete, I'm told, for a long time. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's built on an old foundry site. It was temporarily owned, the land, at least the title to the land, was owned by a brewery that never produced any beer there. And yet it appears that previous owners unloaded that land and unloaded the liability for the land and the environmental cleanup onto the city. So the city got the land for the arena for $1, but also inherited environmental cleanup and liabilities totaling how much money, did you hear?
Well,
conservatively,
approximately $5 million, but I hear more. But I'm sure $5 million is concerning enough. And the problem was when they looked at the offer from the corporation, the beer company, to buy the land for $1, the question's got to be asked: what critical thinking was applied before they signed on to it? And the bottom line is, critical thinking in a democratic process includes debate with the public. But in the era of closed-door meetings, we're never too sure of what thought process was applied for us to acquire a piece of land for $1, only to cost us $5 million and delay the project for 2 decades.
Very interesting. And we're going to walk this way, and we're surveying the land. We've seen, of course, the edge of Lake Simcoe, Mother Nature, ducks and gulls are out, and pretty much a serene, idyllic thing to look at. And we're walking this way, and as John mentioned, underneath all of this is the Lake Simcoe aquifer, the groundwater that extends far inland away from the visible lake. And yet we have a landfill, and it's rather rare, at least in the States, for instance, to see landfills right next to major freshwater bodies like Lake Simcoe. And then beyond that, we have a wastewater treatment plant, not so uncommon near a lake, but there's still the concerns John voiced about phosphorus levels and all sorts of effluents and how well managed they are going into the lake. And maybe 1.5 kilometers away, we have this still uncompleted recreation center And these are very concerning issues: cost overruns, closed door meetings, and these are the things that have been vexing the democratic process as well as the environment in the greater Orillia area. Excuse me. So we'll get a little closer here to see at least the intake, a management center for the landfill.
Yeah, and you'll see some attempts here to do some what I call really good recycling. They have a paint disposable area over there and takes all hazardous waste, and instead of it going over to the landfill, they take it and dispose of the property. We hope, but yeah, there's still room for improvement. But there's some attempt to move in the other direction. But more importantly, I think it's time to consider shutting down this landfill site that's so close to Lake Simcoe. And that's going to take not just one municipality, it's going to take collectively all the municipalities and all the federal governments and provinces around the world to start really addressing the problems of the garbage.
Yeah, should landfills be near fresh water supplies to begin with that are partially used, correct me if I'm wrong, for municipal water for our faucets in our homes?
Yeah.
To draw from.
Well, tragically, the water from Lake Simcoe flows into Lake Couchiching, and that's the intake pipe for the city's drinking water. They do treat it at the far end, but the one thing that goes under the radar when it comes to treating water is chemicals. You're treating it for bacteria, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But
yeah, organic matter, right?
Yeah, chemicals is something that we ingest, and we're starting to find out more and more that the levels of tolerance are getting thinner, and someday we're going to be over the expected level of tolerance. So yeah, it's just a growing problem, and I keep reiterating, Orilla's done it, but there's all kinds of municipalities around the world that are doing it. And collectively, we got to set aside all our disagreements on everything else, and let's see if we can collectively learn and pass the information on to the next person, to the next around the world, so we can have a cleaner villages, cleaner towns, cleaner cities, and healthier towns, villages, and cities.
Thanks, John.
Okay, Mark.
And you've been listening to an Awakening News video. Look for the paper at awakeningnews.ca online, and contact us at lte@awakeningnews.ca. We'll see you next time.